Welcome in, I'm Artress, and in this video, we're going to be going over Blue Jinbe, a new leader from OP14 that reads, activate main, you may trash one card from your hand, give up to 2 rested Dawn cards to one of your Fishman or Merfolk type leader or character cards. Now, at first, this leader ability seems pretty underwhelming because having to pitch cards out of hand in order to activate an ability seems like a bad idea. However, because of the flexibility of this leader ability, I think Jinbe is very strong. But before we go over the deck list and how the leader operates, if you're new to the channel, please make sure to hit that sub button, and while you're at it, give the video a thumbs up if you enjoy it. It helps out the channel so much. Thank you all for the support. Additionally, if you'd like to talk about the One Piece card game outside of the YouTube comments, please make sure to join the Discord community. The link for that is in the description below. So what kind of leader is Jinbe overall? He is an aggressive leader where he is trying to swarm the board with these small units that he can pump up with his leader ability to get these little small hits in and then recruit value based off of KO abilities. Starting off, we're playing a playset of the new Arlong Searcher. He is an on-play. If your leader has the Fishman type, look at 4 cards from the top of your deck, reveal up to 1 card with the cost of 2 or more, and add it to your hand, then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. This is a very powerful searcher for this deck because you are running 42 cards that are 2 cost or higher, so this will hit more often than not, and if it doesn't hit, then you're just unlucky in that search, but you can grab literally almost every card in your deck, including events like Perfume Femur, Red Rock, or Gravity Blade. Next up, we're running a playset of Chu, a 1-cost character that says on play, if your leader has the Fishman type, draw 1 card. This is great because it just replaces itself very early on. Now, keep in mind, both of these cards don't have counter on them, so in the later stages of the game, if they do come out of life, it is kind of a pain to have these in your hand, but once again, your leader ability being flexible as it is, you can just pitch these cards to be able to fuel some of the characters or even your leader. Next up, I'm running a playset of the 2K counter Koala. It's an activate main. You may trash this character. Up to one of your Fishman or Merfolk type leader or character cards gains plus 2,000 power during this turn. This is not a Fishman or Merfolk, so unfortunately you cannot put your leader ability underneath this, although you wouldn't really want to because it's 0 power. You're just typically going to be using this to be able to buff up any of your character or leaders, and then the 2 Dawn that you paid to play this out can then be used to put underneath one of your characters or a leader using your leader ability. Next up, we have Kurobi, which is a 3-cost 3,000 power character that says when a card is trashed from your hand by your effect, this character gains rush during this turn, and then on KO, draw 1 card. A great card to be able to replace itself. Your opponent's not going to want to necessarily swing into this because they are giving you a card in the process, but they're going to have to respect it and going to have to swing into it, because if they don't, then this will continue to just swing into their face. On to some more 2K counters, we have Watatsumi, which is a 3-cost 5,000 power character that says this character cannot attack. When a card is trashed from your hand by your effect, this character's effect is negated during this turn, so it synergizes really well with your leader ability because obviously you're going to be trashing cards from hand, and this will more often than not be able to attack because of that. Of course, you will want to keep some 2Ks in hand, so between this and Koala, obviously take your pick what you want to keep in hand. I'm more likely going to play this card out than the Koala, but you can play both, and both are fine to do 2Ks or play out. Now, I'm running a playset of Pudding, and this might seem a little excessive because why would you need 4 Pudding? But if you're playing an aggressive deck, your opponent's going to be doing one of 2 things, either taking a lot of life or countering out a lot. So if they are taking a lot of life and you have a Pudding in hand, you can easily punish them for that, and it's a great way to close out games, especially if your opponent has hoarded a lot of cards, has 8 or 9 in hand, and you're trying to push for lethal. Now, otherwise, if they have been countering out of a lot of hits, you can always just use this for counter, or you can pitch it for your leader ability. Next, I have a playset of Aladdin. This is a 4-cost 5,000 power character that says on play, play up to 1 Fishman or Merfolk type character card with a cost of 3 or less from your hand, and then on KO, draw 1 card. Now, with this card, typically your target is going to be Kurobi to be able to bring out. You can bring out Watatsumi. You can also bring out the Chu or Arlong, whatever you want to. These are great targets to bring out with the Aladdin. The point here is you're able to cheat out bodies, which, as we've seen over the course of the One Piece card game history, that is always very powerful to be able to do. This also just attacks by itself without having to put any Dawn underneath it, so if you do want to power this up even more, it swings for 7 at a base minimum with the leader ability, which is also nothing to scoff at. Now, I predict there's going to be some people coming into this video immediately seeing the deck list and not listening to any of the choices here, and they're probably going to be some people, where's Law? Where's Law? Where's Law? Where's the 4-cost bounce Law? And to that I say, yes, 4-cost Law is going to be probably the best card to put in at the 4-cost spot, but for the sake of this video and because we are in a new set, I want to try out the 4-cost Shirahoshi blocker. This is a blocker that says on play, draw 1 card, and then then play up to one Fishman or Merfolk type character card with the cost of 3 or less from your hand. So at the very worst, if you don't have anything to cheat out with this, it just draws you a card. Now, having a blocker in this deck can be important at times because you are very fragile, because you're pitching cards left and right. You might have to pitch cards that have counter on them, and as a result, might be poked down pretty quickly if your opponent decides to target your life instead of your board. Having Shirahoshi as a little bit of a safety net can be nice. Otherwise, I would want to play 4-cost Law, and I do have a lot of different versions of this deck that I've been messing with, which I will go over some of these additions and changes at the end of the video. Next up, I have a playset of Jozu. This is a 6-cost, 7,000 power character that is one of the best 6-cost blue cards in the game. You will likely see this in pretty much every blue deck just because of how strong this ability is of bouncing one of your characters, other than this card, and then returning an opponent's character that has cost 6 or lower to their hand. This is such a strong tempo play, especially when you're going against aggro decks like Boa. Jozu is a great answer to a lot of their cards. Then we're running a playset of Fisher Tiger. I think this is probably one of the strongest cards in the deck. A great card to see on 6, and in fact, I often like to play this down instead of Jozu. The card here says, on play, if your leader has the Fishman type, draw 3 cards, and then at the end of your turn, trash cards from your hand until you have 5 cards in your hand. That second clause sometimes does suck because if you have multiple cards in hand, you sometimes can't pitch them all out to be able to use your leader ability. However, this does allow you to use your leader ability pretty freely and feel good about pitching these cards out, knowing that those cards are going to have to go out of your hand at the end of the turn anyway. So Fisher Tiger being able to fuel your leader ability is really important. And of course, like I said, you don't have to feel bad pitching those cards out because they have to go to the trash at the end of the turn anyway, because you have to have 5 when this is on the field. Then I'm running 3 of the 8-cost Jinbe. This is the boss monster of the deck. It has 10,000 power and says when a card is trashed from your hand by your effect, this character gains rush during this turn. On play, you may rest 2 of your Dawn cards and then draw 2 cards, then return up to 1 character with the cost of 7 or less to the owner's hand. This oftentimes is a great finisher, especially if your opponent is at 1 life and they have established a blocker. You can then play this down on 10, draw 2 cards, bounce a 7-cost back to the opponent's hand, and then pitch a lot of the cards that you drew in order to fuel your leader ability to either pump up your leader and this card or other cards on the field to try to go for lethal swings. So this Jinbe is very powerful. You can also just play this on 8, pitch a card, and then have an 8-cost 10,000 power rusher. That's also really powerful as well, but you have the flexibility there to do both, especially if you can play this back to back. On 8, if you play this, and then on 10, if you play another one, your opponent's in a real tough spot, and likely you're going to be able to close the game out from there. Okay, so hear me out. I am running Femur at 4 for a few reasons here. One, I think that the card is much needed for the end game, and I need to see it. If I don't see it, sometimes it's hard to close out a game, especially against decks that block her up towards the end at 0 life. Secondly, it has a trigger of draw 1 card, so if you already have one in hand and it comes out of life, you can just then use the trigger and draw a replacement for it. Lastly, with these kind of cards that might be dead in hand, you can always just pitch them for your leader ability, so at the very worst, this is 2 Dawn underneath another card. Once again, though, I do have some changes that I'll make to the deck, which we will go over at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. Then I'm running 2 Red Rock, just a solid removal piece to be able to remove anything on the field that your opponent throws down, regardless of cost. I think this is important to be able to answer some threats that your opponent might establish, especially if you've had a slow start to the game. Red Rock can sometimes remove a big threat and then get you back in the game after that. And then finally, I'm running 1 Gravity Blade. This is mostly for the Boa matchup, although it is not necessary. I think it can be useful in some scenarios. It is cuttable, and I think for the sake of this video, I am going to be trying it out at 1 of, and hopefully it comes across and we can see how it works out. Overall, Jinbe is a leader that I really enjoy, and I think this will be a leader that I'm going to be taking to locals to have fun with. Not saying that it is a for fun deck. I actually think it has a lot of power to it, but this is a deck that is rather cheap and also rather good. So if you're looking for a budget-friendly option, I think for the most part, everything in here is rather affordable. Affordable, obviously, is in context of what I think, but maybe it is affordable in the general scope of what you're looking for in one piece, especially when compared to a deck like Boa. I think Jinbe is a lot more affordable. With all that in mind, let's take this list into the sim and see how it does. Alrighty, going against Ace, I actually find this matchup somewhat difficult. I'm going to choose to go second because I want to take away their curve and also play my curve here. This is a pretty solid hand. Being able to play a Chew on the first turn, hopefully drawing into another 1-cost character would be pretty powerful. But if we don't, then we at least play 1 character and then have something for the Shirahoshi. Drawing into a Chew's great. We'll do this again. And nice. We have a turn established for this next turn, playing out the Shirahoshi into the Kurobi. we'll have these chews to be able to swing with later. The reason I think this matchup is a little bit more difficult is because when you're using your leader ability to put 2 underneath like a chew, oh, they grabbed a gravity blade there. Unlucky. That's actually really good against our deck. We'll take the 8. It's harder to swing into a 6k leader with a 5k body. So that's the reason why it's a little bit tough here. We'll go ahead and just play. We have a couple options. Actually, I think we could just play the Shirahoshi, draw a card, and then probably just play out the Kurobi or the Chew. The Chew's fine as well. Let's go ahead and pitch. I think we'll just pitch this Chew here and we'll swing 7 into 6 just so we can apply some pressure. And then hopefully we can get like a Fisher Tiger this next turn. If we don't get the Fisher Tiger, we at least have the option of going Jozu. Or if we don't play the Jozu, nice to see they pitched a Roger there. If they don't have the Jozu, or sorry, if we don't play Jozu, we can do any of the other options we have in hand. Pudding is fine. Another Shirahoshi and then start swinging up a little bit is fine as well. I think I'm just going to block this one because I don't want them to pudding us at this point in the game. And then a Marco, good to see. I think we'll just play the Jozu out. I think we could bounce a Chew and then bounce the Marco back, pitching the Chew, and then swing 7 with our leader. I'm not going to swing with any of my units just quite yet. I think once we get the comfortability of being able to swing with the other units without pitching cards out of hand or too many cards, I think it'll be fine. Yep, they did have a pudding. Good to see that is out of their hand. I have 2 ready for them, which I think is going to be a very powerful turn. Of course, on 7, they might play a Jozu of their own. They could also play Marco. They have a lot of options here. I think we just counter out with a 2k while we can, because once again, I don't want to take too many damage hits. And the Gravity Blade, of course, coming out, getting rid of the Jozu. It really hurts. I forgot about that. Unlucky. Let's go ahead and play a Shirahoshi out, and then a Kurobi. And then I think what we could do is swing 6 with our leader. And then without pitching any cards in hand, I can just swing 6 with the Chew. We're just trying to poke them down. They're still at 3 life, and this next turn, thankfully, they don't have a body on the field, but if they do play a Newgate this turn, then it's not going to be really that strong. I guess they could get rid of my Chew and then swing into leader, which we could block or take. I think probably taking is fine at this point because we are at 4 life and 5 cards in hand. We want to see a little bit more options, at least this late into the game. Pitching a Newgate, love to see that. They don't want to take any damage, which I think is fine because of the fact that they didn't have Dawn underneath their leader that turn, so they wouldn't have been able to draw one off of their leader ability, so it makes sense. Putting a Dawn underneath their leader, which means they still have the 8 for a potential I Am Whitebeard. They're just going to go at face here. I think we can just probably take this one. Arlong is a fine card to see there. And then, of course, if they are going to be playing the I Am Whitebeard into a blocker Newgate, we could have the option of red rocking it. We have all of the tools we need to be able to answer. Oh, gosh. Okay, so they're just swinging with the board here. This could be a Marco. I'm just going to block with the Shirahoshi because why not? So it's an Ezo probably into the Marco. Okay, that makes sense. We do have a Jozu to be able to answer that if that's the case, and they're going to be able to grab their 2k Jozu off of the Ezo search. Okay, so let's go ahead and just play the Arlong down, see if we can get a search off. Fisher Tiger's pretty solid here. Also, Femur is good too, but I think Fisher Tiger is probably better for the long run. We'll go ahead and bounce the Marco back to hand, and then we're going to swing 6 into lead. I'm just trying to be as annoying as possible here. We could potentially pitch one of the puddings to then put 2 underneath one of the characters we have on the field and then swing another 6, and then play out the Arlong to get 1 more search off. And if we're going to swing with anything, I think we swing with the Kurobi, because if they're going to swing into it, we at least get a card with the on-KO ability. So we have some pretty good options here. We're keeping it rather even for the state of the game. Of course, you know, the longer the game goes on against Ace and they start accumulating these big bodies, that's going to be a problem. But they haven't played anything quite this early, so that's nice to see. Let's go ahead and swing 3 into 2. It's actually fine to do this. And then, like I said, we could go ahead and play the Arlong again, grab something else. Grabbing the Fisher Tiger, just having another one is fine. We'll go ahead and pitch the Pudding because we have 2 of them. We don't need them at this point, especially with 3 cards in hand. We'll swing 6 into 6. They'll likely take this one. I would, at least if I was the Ace player, just to have some more cards in hand for this next turn as an option. And like I said, they probably are not, well, I said in the intro at least, you're probably not going to want to swing into Kurobi. So they're probably going to ignore the Kurobi and go after the Chew if they're going to swing into anything. But also, it doesn't really make sense to do that because of the fact that they don't have any bodies that they're going to be able to put Dawn underneath comfortably. And if they do put Dawn underneath the Ezo or the Otama, I think we're in a pretty winning state. The next turn, we can play a Fisher Tiger. And Fisher Tiger also guarantees that we won't be in pudding range because of the fact that we have to discard cards down to 5. So we're in a pretty good spot here. This turn, of course, I would imagine by now they've seen at least 1 Newgate. We've seen them pitch 1. The 10 cost is going to be the ideal target for them, so they could just play out the 10 cost, and if they do that, like I said, we have a red rock ready to go, and then we can start swinging from there. And down comes the 10 cost. They are not playing the I Am Whitebeard event, which is, yeah, totally fine. I probably wouldn't either. Putting 200 at the Otama doesn't matter because they can't swing into these 3 cost or 3,000 power units. They're going to swing 8 into, I would imagine, lead. I don't think they're going to really want to bother. Oh, they're going to actually get rid of the Chew. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that makes sense. Getting rid of the Chew's fine. Not getting rid of the Kurobi is also fine for them. Here, we could just go Red Rock, the Newgate. We could also just play the Shirahoshi out, but I think it might make more sense to just use the Dawn we have to swing into them. So 6 into 6, we'll likely just get a 1k out of hand. We could swing, I guess, another. We could start pitching cards from hand. Okay, so they use their leader ability here. So I am tempted to put Dawn underneath these cards and then swing, but I think we just swing 10 and guarantee we get this leader down to 1 life at least. So we can still pressure them pretty hard for the next turn or two. And they also drew cards in the process, which means that they're more susceptible to putting 2 Gravity Blades. What? I hardly even run 1 in my ace deck. Okay, that's, I mean, respect to them. They did see the cards they need for this matchup, if that's the case. Atmos is also a really good card for this matchup. They're seeing their cards, but maybe a little bit too late, I would guess. They're not establishing any kind of board in the process, so kind of annoying. I guess for us, but also it is what it is. We're going to hold on to this Red Rock because if they do drop 1 more 10 cost, it is going to be nice to see. Here, let's just play out a Fisher Tiger, draw a boatload of cards. We have a Femur and a Red Rock ready to go. We're just going to go ahead and try to swing as big as we can with the units we have on the field. So I think it doesn't really matter too much what we are pushing out. We just kind of have to hold on to the Femur and then also the Pudding. We'll go 6 into 6, and they'll probably just give us a 1k here, and then what we can do is go really big with the rest of the cards we can pitch and swing with our leader and push them down to 0, and if they're down to 0, then we can just go Pudding into Perfume Femur and then pitch cards from our hand to go huge unblockable, which is the whole point and how you kind of have to win this matchup, because it, like I said, is very tough. They've seen answers along the way to what we're playing, but at the same time, they're not establishing a board, which I think is the reason why we are actually ahead in this game right now. If they've been able to establish a board while also answering our stuff, then that would be a problem. But here, we're just going to swing 12 because, 12 is a good number. And also, we have to pitch cards out of hand regardless. We're going to lose cards in this process, but I think it's fine. We'll go ahead and go 12 into 6, and I will imagine that this goes through. I mean, they have to dump their entire hand if that's the case. And if they do, that means we just pitch a Pudding at the end of the turn. But I think we still hold on to the Pudding here because if they take this damage, they take the damage, get a card, draw a card off the process, and then draw a card for the turn. Then they would be at 9, and they're probably going to play something. So they'll be at 8 at the end of the turn. And then Pudding into a Perfume Femur, if they do play a blocker out, means that it's pretty much guaranteed that they cannot counter out of it. So we'll go ahead. I think Red Rock is not needed because of the fact that they are at 0 at this point. So anything we would need to remove, we could just bypass. And then we just have the rest of them be counters, one of them being a Pudding, and then the Femur being the other card we need. So the last 2 cards we're going to pitch from this hand is going to be Pudding and Femur if we need to. Here, they just go for the board, which is fine. Jozu to get a little bit of a tempo play, which is, once again, good. And then into Marco. So yet again, we're just going to go Pudding, reset their hand, go Femur, and then make it unblockable. And then we're just going to pitch as many cards as we can to be able to get all of that Dawn back that we played for the Pudding and the Femur. So very Dawn efficient here. And we're just going to go 17. It's actually very Dawn efficient because we are swinging 17 instead of 15. So 17 unblockable. That is not counterable for them. So I think we played it well. I think they played it fine. Once again, though, establishing bodies like a Jozu might have been a better play for them if they saw it. I don't know if they saw it or not, but they did see answers to our board along the way. So yeah, the ace player played it fine, but we just were, I think, a little too aggressive for them at points. Like I said, they didn't have enough to be able to get out of it no matter what. 17 against 6, even if they pitched their whole entire hand, they would not be able to mathematically get out of that hit. On to Mihawk. I think this matchup is manageable. I think Mihawk kind of suffers against 5k pokes, which we're really good at. I was greedy and mulliganed that hand because of the fact that I wanted to see more 1 cost, but unfortunately we actually just got a slightly worse hand because we don't have anything this turn to play. We could play the Koala, but I think it's just better to hold on to it. I mean, there's an argument we could, I guess, but yeah, I'd rather just have the 2k in hand at this point. And then this next turn, I guess we'll just play, if we don't draw anything good, we could play Watatsumi and then just have a body ready to go. And then the next turn, maybe play a Jozu. But it really depends on our draw, and then what we get from life. Thankfully, Mihawk doesn't really have anything to do for the first, like, at least first 3 Dawn of their turn, you know, because they are playing Searchers out. These are not going to really be attackers for the most part. Once they hit 5 Dawn, then they start getting their power spike where they play 5-cost characters into, you know, 7-cost into huge characters. All right, grabbing a 9-cost Mihawk is a problem because, you know, that's a really good card against any deck. I think we'll just swing 5 here. We can have an option to play the Watatsumi. I think that's our best option. If they do take this hit, though, I am very inclined to play out the Pudding because just hitting a soft reset this early in the game is pretty good for us, and we can always bounce the Pudding back with the Jozu the next turn and kind of play more of a tempo game if that's the case, especially if we don't have any Fishman on the field. One of the downsides, ooh, okay, they did take this. We're putting them and then passing the turn. One of the downsides here with running as many 4-cost copies of stuff in the deck is that we don't have nearly as many Fishman or Merfolk as maybe we would like, especially if we don't see a curve like this. It can be a little bit rough. They do get a Tashigi off of that reset, which is really good for them. Tashigi is really hard to remove. For us, the Jozu doesn't really do much in favor for us. We'll go ahead and take this hit and see what we get. Aladdin's fine. If we need to, we can play the Aladdin. Do we take this 5? Kind of inclined to, although we could counter out. I think maybe pitching a Jozu's fine because I don't really think that the Jozu's going to do much against the Tashigi. They can just, you know, rest itself or rest the Dawn that they restand with the Coffin Boat. Let's go ahead and swing Pudding into the Perona, just get it off the field. We'll swing 7 into lead, and then we'll play out the Aladdin into the Watatsumi, setting up the Fisher Tiger turn, which I think is going to be pretty important to be able to really just pressure them this next turn with a lot of 7k swings. That's the nice thing, at least with Aladdin into Watatsumi and to a Fisher Tiger, is that you're going to be able to swing really big. Now, will they get rid of this Pudding? Is it worth it? I don't really think swinging into the Pudding is worth it, which I think they also agree with. It's not worth it. They're going to just swing and focus face, which I think is a fine thing to do. Pressuring the Jinbe down is usually fine. Not a problem overall. On 7, thankfully they didn't have the 7-cost Shanks. They do have a Bonnie, which will freeze a Dawn. I think that's fine. Not the end of the world here. What are they going to rest? Did they already rest? I can't recall. I don't think they rested. Okay, so they're just going to rest a Dawn to then restand, or 2 Dawn, 3 Dawn. They're doing so much here. Playing the Coffin Boat, drawing a card, swinging 7, and then I think we just go ahead and I think we hold on to the Femur here, and then see what we get with the Fisher Tiger. All right, with this turn, with them freezing the Dawn, at least, I think they thought that the 8-cost Jinbe was coming down, which I don't have, which is fine for us, because we're still going to play the Fisher Tiger regardless. We'll swing 5 with lead. We'll just start poking with 5s. Honestly, 5s are really good here. 5s are honestly really strong, and they're giving us cards. We'd love to see it. We could also play the Jozu out as well, bouncing the Pudding back to hand. I think that's fine. And then maybe set up the Fisher Tiger in a turn. What do we bounce back? I guess the Bonnie. Doesn't really matter too much. And then we're going to pitch... We could pitch a Red Rock. We don't need 2 of them. And then swing 7 with our Watatsumi. Now here, they'll probably swing into the Watatsumi the next turn, giving us a 2 and a 1. Oh, okay. We'd like to see that. They'll probably swing into the Watatsumi. They'll probably ignore the Aladdin, and then just the rest of the swings will go face. Now, did they get a 9-cost Mihawk? That is the big question here. They got another one. That is unfortunate for us, meaning that probably the Jozu's not going to be able to swing this next turn. It is what it is. Hopefully, we can keep these Fishman and Merfolk. I think they're Fishman. I think they're all Fishman alive here. And if we can keep these alive, then we can really pressure them with a lot of 7k swings at their face. Unfortunately, the 8 into 5 is going to just have to go. I don't think I can survive. I could pitch, but I think I just have to let it go because I'm going to get value off of this card. And we thankfully drew into a Jinbe here. We had other options if we needed it, but I think thankfully this Jinbe came just in time to be able to use the full ability here to bounce back the Law. Then we can pitch cards out of hand that are going to be dead to us anyway. So let's go ahead and pitch the Chu, the Arlong, and possibly another card as well. Maybe the Red Rock or Jozu, doesn't really matter. We'll swing 11 into 5. This will likely connect. And then we can swing really big with the Jinbe, pitching some more cards out of hand. Maybe a Red Rock, And then we're just going to go as big as possible with this Jinbe so we can pitch the red rock and then pitch one more card. Doesn't really matter what. I guess maybe another pudding or Jozu. Anything is fine. And then 14 into lead. This will likely connect as well. Them being down to 0 means they have to push for lethal here with only 3 units. And I have a fair amount of counter in hand. I think we're good to go. We also have the pudding to reset their hand and also the femur in case they do establish one more blocker. So we're in a pretty good spot here. Once again, this is the reason why I run a lot of puddings and a reason why I run a lot of femurs, because I want to be able to have this as a game finisher, which is oftentimes really good here. So the Lawn Beppo coming down to, I suppose, keep the 8-cost Jinbe rested, although they could just use the Mihawk to do that as well. They are going to be able to freeze both of these units, which is totally fine for me because I could just use a really big swing with my leader. They will probably have Dawn restand at the end of the turn to be able to play counter events, which Mihawk runs a lot of counter events that they have to pay Dawn for, which is the reason why 5k hits are really good. So here they just use the Lawn Beppo to rest the Jozu, freeze it. They'll likely swing with the Mihawk. I mean, they will swing with the Mihawk to be able to freeze the 8-cost Jinbe. And then they're probably just going to swing really big with the rest of the units. Here, I'll just stay as healthy as possible. Just countering out of one of these attacks is fine. So if they go 8, 8, 9, or 8, 8, 10 rather, I can get rid of or out of at least one of the 8s or even a 9 by that means. We do want to hold on to the pudding, so I think it's fine here to be able to counter out of whatever. So this being an 8k into 5, I think it's fine to just take this. We do get another 2k, so in the end, we're still fine. Probably better to just counter out of that 8k swing, just in case they decide to go 9 here, and we would have to pitch the pudding. I didn't want to pitch the pudding, though. So they're going to go 10 into lead, freezing the Jinbe, and then we'll take that one. And then if they go 9 here, we have enough to get out of it. If they go 7 or 8 here, regardless, we should have enough to get out of whatever and also be able to play the pudding the next turn. Here, 8 into 5, we'll just give them 2/2Ks, and then from this turn, I imagine they probably have a lot of counter events, like I said. We'll just play the pudding, reset their hand, and then get our value back by playing the Chew, pitching the Fisher Tiger, and then I'll put the rest onto the Jinbe leader and then swing 15 into 7, and they just didn't have enough at that point. I guess they could have gotten out of it, but we got a little bit lucky that their reset hand did not have anything useful in it. On to Boa Hancock. I'm going to take second here because that is just our better curve in general. This hand is pretty solid, other than the Femur. Femur is just a better late game tool, which we can just pitch in the meantime and find another one along the way. The Arlong is a solid start. Hopefully we can find one more 1-cost. And if we do, we're able to at least play an Arlong, maybe a Chew, or maybe we draw into another Arlong. But regardless, this Arlong is going to be important to be able to set up our Aladdin turn, where we're able to bring the Aladdin plus another 3-cost out. Finding a Slave Arrow, pretty solid for them. We don't find exactly what we need, but this Fisher Tiger is actually really strong. So Arlong being able to grab, that's great. And then grabbing, I suppose we could grab another Fisher Tiger. So grab a 2k, since we are a little bit short on those. So we had some options there. Do we take this 5? We do. We'll use the Perfume Femur to draw, and then the Aladdin can cheat out the Chew if we need to. And then we'll have a really wide board by the time that Fisher Tiger comes out. We can swing with all of these units for like 5, which 5 against Boa Hancock is really good as well because of the fact that they don't run a lot of counters. Sure, I mean, they do run a lot of counters. Let me get this straight. They run a lot of counters, but hitting them for a bunch of times in a turn really sucks for Boa. Boa wants to take hits because of the fact that they want to be able to get triggers off of their life, but they don't want to take too many hits is the point. So this turn, we'll just swing 5. We're not going to swing with any of the other units. We want to establish these threats first, and then Fisher Tiger to be able to pump them up the next turn. So they are sitting on what's likely a trigger, because that is Boa Hancock, bringing out a Ran, pretty solid overall. We'll bring the Aladdin out to bring out the Chew, and then we will, I guess we could pitch a Chew in the process, because we don't necessarily need as many cards in hand. We are kind of in a puddingable spot. Even though I just said we will want to not swing with that, I think it's fine. They do take another 5, which is quite surprising here. They're down to 2 life already. This could be a Boa Hancock, which if it is the blocker Boa Hancock, looks like it is. We're really in a good spot here because of the fact that swinging 5 against them means that we're not going to lose a life in the process if they do decide to block any of these hits. Once again, Fisher Tiger is a really good card here to be able to pump up these smaller characters. We could also Jozu if we really want to. Do I want to, though? I'm not entirely sure that is the best play. It is a solid play. It's a good option, but I think Fisher Tiger's slightly better. Do we counter out of this one? I think we just let it go. We can counter out of the other stuff, like at least one hit here. Pitch the pudding. Maybe even pitch another card for the Ran, Because I think they didn't use the Ran ability. Okay, well, we can pitch a 2K here to their leader, at least. That's a possibility. And then we can draw a bunch with the Fisher Tiger. We're going to ignore their board. We're just going to play the Fisher Tiger out, and then we should start pitching cards. Femur's fine. Arlong's fine. Fisher Tiger's fine. Aladdin's fine. Any of these are fine to pitch. We want to keep the 2K in hand, and we want to keep the ACOS Jinbe at least, because these are pretty strong cards in general. Let's go ahead and pitch the Aladdin. Actually, the Shirahoshi's fine to pitch too. So we'll swing 5 into 5. And then I think the last card we'll pitch is the Aladdin, just to keep the Jozu for tempo and to keep the Fisher Tiger for a refuel if we need it. And then I guess 5 and 7 is what we're going to have to swing, because we're going to have to get rid of a card anyway. And the Femur could prove to be valuable. This is where it gets a little bit tough with this deck, is like, what do you pitch for your leader ability? Femur would probably be fine, but we might need it just in case they keep up a Boa Hancock blocker. So it's like, what do you value the most? The counter to possibly stay alive, because what are they going to this next turn? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're going to go to 7, which is not necessarily like super powerful for them. I'll go 5 into lead. Maybe bait out a Boa Hancock block. And if they don't block with this, if they just counter out, they take it. Okay, they take it, and that is going to kill the Fisher Tiger. That's actually a pretty good play here. Let's go ahead and, well, I think we pitch the Femur just to keep the counter in hand. I think I'm very vulnerable this turn, especially if they block and I have to take a life. That is going to be a problem. So yeah, they don't block. They just give us a 2 and a 1. Okay, one of those being Akuma, which is probably a card that they also have in their hand again because they need to heal up this turn. I don't think they're going to be able to close out. Maybe they potentially try to close out the game here. But they've seen like a fair, like 2 triggers maybe. No, is it 3? I don't remember exactly, but that's kind of average. Maybe 2 to 3, 4 Boa is pretty solid. I think we've been playing it pretty well though. They're probably going to try to answer the board, of course. So 5 into 3. At this point, if they don't heal, then it was a mistake to bounce or to pitch the Femur. But we could also just play a Jinbe and swing really big with the units we have. So we do have options here. Maybe even worth... Okay, so it is... Okay, Akuma, that's fine. It is a good thing that we pitched the Femur if that's the case, because we wouldn't have been able to go lethal anyway. And if they decide to swing 7 into the Aladdin, I think we might actually just have to let it... I mean, we could let it go. But we could also just get value off of the draw. That's also a possibility. 6 into 5. We can give them a 2K since it's only 1 card. And if they decide to swing the Boa Hancock, we're in a really good spot here. The 1 open means that they have, what, Slave Arrow that they grabbed earlier, so they'll probably bounce the Gloriosa back to hand. Let's go ahead and play... Let's swing Aladdin first. I'm thinking about playing the Jinbe, but it might be better to play the Jinbe when we can bounce something back to their hand. They do get the free block off. Ooh. Now I'm a little bit more enticed to play the Jinbe overall. I don't know. The Jozu seems pretty solid too. Maybe we just go 7 into lead and see if they use their Slave Arrow here. They don't. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. What could they possibly have? No trigger. That's good for us. Let's go ahead and play the Jozu out. I guess we'll bounce the Aladdin and then bounce probably the Boa Hancock back to hand, the blocker one. So that means this next turn, they're probably going to play the 9-cost Boa to heal and trash. And that's just like 1 less swing for us to have to worry about with the blocker Boa. So that's good for us. And we can close out with the 8-cost Jinbe as well. And if they do a bunch of small swings here, that pretty much signifies that they are playing the 9-cost Boa Hancock. So, yeah, I think we can counter out of a lot of these small swings. We'll go ahead and give them a 1K. We'll just get out of what we can because if they do play it, they heal and trash 1. And then if we are just taking life so easily, then that means we could potentially lose the game here. I mean, we're pretty healthy, but yeah, there's the 9-cost. They aren't going to be able to put a Dawn... Oh, they are, because they have Ran. Okay, so 6 into lead here. We could take this one. I think we actually just take as much as possible because that means it's more fuel for us to be able to fuel up our 8-cost Jinbe. Let's swing 7 into lead first. See if they take this. They do. That's really good for us. I don't think there's any game-breaking triggers here like a beige or anything to bring out a blocker. Looks like they didn't have anything in hand. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and play the Jinbe out and then just use the effect and then just go ahead and pitch a bunch of cards to swing with the Jinbe. I'm going to try to do it as fast as possible so they don't just concede here. I think 14's fine. We'll go ahead and just swing 14 into lead because I know one of these is a 4-cost blocker and they were just bricked up. So it didn't matter at all. We could have just swung 5 and been fine. So yeah, that's kind of how you have to do it. Just pressure them with these small hits and then go all in with the 8-cost once they're down to 0. On to Red Law. I actually really value this. I think this deck is actually better than people think it is. And it's a pretty good matchup for Jinbe because both of us are trying to be aggressive. And over time, I think the Law is just a little bit better at being aggressive with the units it has. Being able to swap Supernova and Heart Pirate values is really powerful because you can get a lot of lethal swings that maybe the opponent didn't expect. Regardless, this hand is pretty solid. The opponent chooses to go first, which is their better curve. And then second, like I said, in pretty much every game is better for us. We have a lot of options here. I think Chu first to get a draw, and then the Arlong to get a next turn play is pretty solid here. We could go Shirahoshi into Arlong or Chu, whatever we want to do. So we have some pretty good options. We could also just fill the board up even more with like an Arlong and Chu and swing 7. That might be better. Depends. We're just trying to like fill up the board as much as possible. So grabbing a Cavendish is pretty nice for them. It will be a nice little surprise attack, especially late game when they can throw down like a 7 cost and maybe like throw the Cavendish down and have a surprise lethal there. We'll take that 5. I think we just swing 5 here with lead. I am not enticed to swing with my Chu or Arlong quite yet. I think we could play a Shirahoshi to draw a card, and then I think the Arlong is fine. We're looking for our 6 cost, so I guess Jozu is going to be our best bet here since it is an on-curve play, but I think Fisher Tiger overall is going to be better. Let's go ahead and just pitch a card out of hand. I don't typically like to do this early, but I think because we want to apply a little bit more pressure to them and give them an option to swing into rather than just life, I think that'll be fine here. Now, optimally for them, they're probably going to play an X-Drake this turn, X-Drake being a 5-cost 7,000 power character. It's not. It's the Kid blocker, which is actually pretty good as well, but it means that their attacks are going to be less powerful overall. Here, they could do a couple things. They could swing 5 with this Luffy, reducing the Arlong down to 2,000 power, and then just swing a Basil Hawkins into it. So that's pretty powerful. Of course, here's the Cavendish. They might also just give the Cavendish Rush, which I disagree with. I think they should just put the swap ability on the blocker and Luffy, but of course, we'll see what they choose. So yeah, that's my opinion on that. I think they should just like try to clear the board while also applying pressure in the meantime, and then I'll have to answer this Luffy, of course, or whatever they turn sideways. Okay, so they just go 1 into 2, maybe a mismath on their part. Regardless, they'll still probably be able to get rid of this by swinging 2 into 5. It looks like they were about to swing 5 into it. I was like, but that's a mistake. Okay, so they're going to do the right thing here. 5 into 5. They didn't need to put the Dawn underneath the Luffy there. They could have just like swapped the this power with the Luffy, but oh well. Regardless, it still comes to be the same result for the most part. I think they should probably use the Hawkins to swap, so that way I'm not going to be really enticed to swing into it. They do want to swing with the Cavendish. That's fine. Once again, same end result overall. I do get to at least answer their board a little bit better, but the Hawkins will remain. Oh, we drew into just the right thing here. We're going to play... Actually, we will have too many cards with this Fisher Tiger, just to keep in mind. I think it's okay, though. We'll go ahead and pitch the Femur. We don't really need it in this matchup. We're just going to go ahead and pitch as many cards as possible in this process. Pitching a Jozu. And I think we will just swing into the board, just trying to remove these little small bodies. I don't think it's worth swinging into the Hawkins, but we could take a chance and see if the Hawkins on KO gets another 2,000 power unit or less onto the field, which it always feels like a waste. It's kind of like the Thriller Bark Pirates package, where you can swing into something and then just brings more things out. So it's kind of the same thing with this Hawkins here. They do let the Cavendish go as expected. I think we just get rid of this Luffy, and then I think we ignore the Hawkins for now and just swing at lead with a 7 because we need to pitch more cards out of hand. This could be a block with them because I don't know if they want to go down to 2 this early on turn 3, but maybe they do. I think they might feel confident with their hand if that's the case. They get a trigger to draw a card. Nice to see, I guess, for them. And I think we should just pitch a Pudding and an 8-cost Jinbe just so we have as much counter as possible and some future plays to hold on to in the meantime. They do have a pretty big hand size, so the Pudding might have been nice to hold on to, but I think Fisher Tiger as another backup plan will be pretty good. So that way we can just hit harder this next turn with whatever is alive. We will use the Shirahoshi blocker at some point because I imagine this turn, there's the X-Drake. This turn, if they played the 7-cost Zoro, the one that has Rush and minuses 1,000 to something on the field, that would have been really scary because they would have had a potential 4 swings this turn with the leader, the 4-cost blocker, the 7-cost Zoro, and the Hawkins, but the X-Drake is fine as well. I don't have any removal for this anyway. Actually, that's not true. The Jinbe does count as removal, but if that's the case, that means that we're going to swing really big into them. They're just going to go 3 into 3, get rid of the Chu. I think we just let it go. I think it's fine to let some of this stuff go. They're going to go 3 into 3. Okay, that's fine as well. If they go 5 into lead, so be it. I'll give them, I guess, just to take the hit. Ooh, okay, this is really powerful because of the fact that it is on the opponent's turn when they do this. Let's just go ahead and bottom deck the Axe Drake. Gravity Blade coming up at least once in these videos, which is nice. We could have used it on the blocker as well, but I think it's fine as is. And then here, if they want to swing the block, then be my guest, but I don't think they're going to want to swing this Captain Kidd. I think they're going to want to keep it on the field. It's a pretty lucky trigger overall. And then here, I think we just play another Fisher Tiger. And like I said, we just go really, really hard. We could just play the Perfume Femur to ignore this blocker. I think we just go ahead and get it onto something here. So we'll put it onto the Jinbe. I guess the only valid target. And then we'll put some Dawn underneath the Fisher Tiger. Swing 9 into 5. And they should probably block this one if they don't want to go down to 0. And then, oh, I guess they want to go down to 0. So then we'll go ahead and play or pitch the Red Rock, go down to 5 in hand, and then swing 9k unblockable. I mean, I guess they could have a 2-2-1, but it's... Okay, I was going to say it's highly unlikely and not very efficient. They should have just blocked and then give us 2-2-1 if they want to stay relatively healthy. But it is what it is. That's fine by me. They can drop as many cards as they'd like. And then this next turn, we should just be able to close the game out based off of the Fisher Tiger, the 8-cost Jinbe bouncing something, and also our leader ability to pump all of those units up. We also have Shirahoshi still sitting on the field. So, like, we're in a pretty good spot regardless of what they do this turn, even if it is the 9-cost Law. That one also having Rush and the ability to pitch 2 cards from hand to swap, I think, the base power of your leader with the character. So that's, once again, really powerful. Looks like they don't have it. They're just swinging as much as possible. So they're trying to potentially close the game out here. Okay, they have a lot of swings, looks like. So 5 with the Hawkins, 5 with this Hawkins. We'll just give them a 2k. I think it just will stay as healthy as possible. We don't want to take any chances here. They might have the 4-cost Kid and Killer. Some of them run that. And if they have a lot of swings here, it means they could swing 5 with the blocker. Okay, so they're just establishing a couple blockers, looks like. Totally fine there. What do we think about this? I think that, well, it depends on what they do with this first swing. We could just test the waters with like a Fisher Tiger swing. And if they block pretty instantaneously, then we can bounce something else here. We're just going to block this one and see if they want to swing with anything else. Okay. We'll take that one because it's fine to have more cards in hand for this last swing here. So we'll just start off with a 7. If they take this, then, I mean, we're still in a good spot. If they block instantly, then we can just go ahead and play the Jinbe and then bounce the other blocker back to hand and then swing really big with what we have. So I think we're okay. We're in a pretty good spot because they blocked instantly there. Let's go ahead and just bounce the 2k back to hand, and then we can just math it out. We'll go 9 to lead. If they counter out of this one, then we have lethal regardless. But just to save some time, let's just go ahead and put 2 underneath the Fisher Tiger, swing 9. And then we could put 2 underneath the Jinbe, swing 12 for pretty much guaranteed at that point. I mean, they'd have to give every card in hand, and then we just swing 5 with leader. So, yeah, I think that they didn't really see their optimal curve. And that's sometimes a Law thing. Maybe they just don't see it. Obviously, seeing the X-Drake on curve into a 7-cost Zoro. They just had a lot of 2Ks, which that's fine, but dang. I mean, they would have had everything to be able to counter out of the 12k if I did go, because that would have drawn them into a 2k. Interesting to see. Unlucky that they didn't see their curve, though. So needless to say, I really enjoy this deck. I have been testing with different variants and different builds. For the sake of the video, obviously we had the Shirahoshi in. Is that the best version of the deck? Probably not. From what I have now to what I have on what I played with in the sim, it's a lot different. There's a lot of cards, like I said, like tested out. I think for here, the ones that I've found to be the best for the deck, or at least some that I've tested out, would be this 1-cost Kaya 2k counter. I think the fact that it trashes cards from hand helps enable some cards that you might want to play, like the 8-cost Rush Jinbe. If you play this, you can enable it pretty easily. Obviously, you can do that anyway with your leader ability, but having more 2Ks in the deck is something that I would like. So right now we have 8. I actually would like to have 12, so I'm including more Kayas in a build that I'm running at locals. For Hachan, this is another card that I guess is an additional 1-cost character you can play down. I prefer Chu over this one because Chu just gets the draw immediately. Your opponent has to KO this or swing into it in order for it to get the KO, and you have to have 2 Dawn underneath it anyway. So I don't necessarily like Hachan that much. It's a replacement for any of the other 1-costs. I guess not Arlong. Arlong is irreplaceable, but the Chu, if you want to replace it with the Hachan, you can. If you want to add these on to the deck, then you can as well. Personally, not necessarily a fan in the long run. I've played with this 3-cost Arlong a little bit. I do like this card. I think it's more of a niche card, though. not necessary. And if you're looking to more of a budget build, this is definitely not a card you're going to want to include, because I think right now it's around $30 or so, although the promo, the Netflix version of it's like 15. So you could probably do that if you want. But this card is solid if you can drop it down pretty early, because of the fact that you are forcing your opponent to put cards into the bottom of their deck based off of your life, of course. So the earlier you play this down, the better. And also if you do go first, the Arlong is a pretty solid play on 3. And then, of course, I mentioned in the intro, this Law is going to be just a better card in general than maybe the Shirahoshi, just because of the fact that you have good tempo plays with this. It does swing naturally, so you don't have to worry about putting Dawn underneath it. So this Law is definitely much needed for the deck. Now, I've been playing around with it at 4. I don't know if 4 is the right total. I think anywhere from like maybe 2 to 3 is the right amount. And then maybe putting an Arlong or 2 in replacement of the Shirahoshi. And then finally, the 6-cost Law is also pretty interesting as well, because of the fact that your opponent might have a lot of cards in hand from taking a lot of hits. On 10, you can play this, rip a life into their hand, and then play a pudding in the same turn and reset their hand, which is pretty nasty. So you have some pretty good options with this card overall. But yeah, I really, really enjoy Blue Jinbe. I think that this leader is a lot of fun, and probably one that I don't think a lot of people are going to be looking at, because of the fact that Boa is just a really strong leader. Mihawk is a really strong leader. Even Purple Dofi probably has more play in general, more representation. So Blue Jinbe, I definitely think is worth picking up, especially if you are into aggro decks. And I'm not even into aggro decks. I like control decks, and I really enjoy playing Jinbe into this meta. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you guys think about Jinbe in general. What spicy picks do you have in your deck list that maybe I didn't consider? Let me know in the comments as well. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.